Hey everyone. Rio and I are back. Again, we were going to have our launch of Let Me Tell You Why That's Bullshit on Monday, but as we all know, it's Inauguration Day, and we kind of got caught up in the craziness that was today. We wanted to talk a little bit about the inauguration speech that happened obviously at noon Eastern Standard Time. However, Rio just got off from his real job. I don't have a real job. And Trump is currently talking about signing his first wave of executive orders. So we're going to watch and see how this goes and probably be appalled. So let's see what President Trump has to say.
Dad, you got to go out and do this one and that one. And we did a lot of them. And he respects them all. He understood them very well. And he said, Dad, you got to go out, do Joe Rogan, do all these guys. And we did. We did. And Joe Rogan was great. They were all great, right, Baron? They were all good. He understood the market. Another famous one. How about Kai? Stand up, Kai.
Look at that girl's face behind him.
Yeah, she looks just, yeah. Even the girl behind her too, right? Like she doesn't look happy to be there. She's kind of like it's like she's held a
Byron Donalds back there. Stand up, Byron. Stand up. What a future this one has. What a future. That's great, Byron. Thank you very much. And how about Lutnick? Secretary of Commerce, he's going to take in more money than any country has ever even thought about. He's going to take in some money. And we have many others. Look, I'm not going to go through it, but we're going to sign some orders right now, and that's really what I want to do. So we're going to sign executive orders. First, I'll revoke nearly 80 destructive and radical executive actions of the previous administration, one of the worst administrations in history, maybe not one of them, the worst. Anybody that would allow millions of people to pour through our borders from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums, gang members to be taken off the streets of Venezuela and deposited in our country,
guys, so
and many, not just Venezuela. You know, crime in Venezuela is down 74%.
Biden's making
because they took
1,000
their
arrests per day at
criminals
the
and gave
border,
them to
which is
us
50%
through
less
an open border
than
policy of the
2019 per day when
previous
Trump left.
administration.
Yeah.
All over the world, they're emptying their prisons into our country. They're emptying their mental institutions into our country. It stops as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, it stops. So I'm revoking nearly 80 destructive, radical executive actions of the previous administration. They'll all be null and void within about, what, 5 minutes? Is that them over there? 5 minutes?
Literally just said the same
And
thing
next, to
twice.
gain immediate control of the vast federal, out-of-control bureaucracy, I will implement an immediate regulation freeze, which will stop Biden bureaucrats from continuing to regulate. Most of those bureaucrats are being fired. They're gone. Should be all of them, but some sneak through, but we have to live with a couple, I guess. I'll also issue a temporary hiring freeze to ensure that we're only hiring competent people who are faithful to the American public. And we will pause the hiring of any new IRS agents. We will also require that federal workers must return to the office in person.
Do you think he meant to say loyal to me?
We're going to take the
and not the
88,000
American
people
public?
that they hired
Yeah.
to go after you with guns. By the way, they're allowed to use guns and
Jesus
harass you like
Christ.
they were so many other people.
Okay, can you pause it for a
Remember
second?
this?
Because like,
Okay,
so this came up.
remember? Do you remember a little statement about tips?
Okay, so this came up a while ago, and this is actually also during Hegseth's confirmation hearing, where when he was asked, like, "Oh yeah, will you oppose like an illegal order to open fire on protesters?" And then Hegseth obviously didn't deny that he would or wouldn't, and this is just continuing that sentiment, which is absolutely insane to me, that you have a U.S. president who's just okay with the idea of using violence on their own citizens, right? Like,
Right. Well, and we'll talk about this later if we have time to record, or maybe we'll do another recording this week.
Yep.
But one of the things from his inauguration speech today was he was talking about how he'll make sure MLK's dream comes to pass. And
yep,
all I could think was MLK wanted peaceful protests to make change. You
Yep.
wanted to shoot protesters.
yep,
You disgusting human being.
yeah, like literally just dropping the name to be like, oh, look at me. But I think it's operating on the assumption that no one's actually gonna think about it, right? But we can talk about that later. Anyway, continue on with the insanity.
Does anybody remember that little statement? I think we won Nevada because of that statement. But they went out and harassed you over the tips. In other words, we are restoring control of our government to the people. We're going to take those 88,000. Let's see if they'd like to work on the border, because that's where we want them, really.
I think nobody was arrested over those tips.
So we're going to have no tax on tips, right? No tax on tips. And we may have, like the Speaker of the House, is he here? He's done such a good job. Is Mike here? Is he around here someplace? I saw him just a little while ago. Hello, fellas. Look at you guys. Yeah, I know.
Don't make
he's
us
great.
look
He's doing
Mike
great.
too.
They're all doing good. The Republican Party has never been unified like it is right now. They want to save our country. And we're going to more than save it. We're going to make it greater than it's ever been before by a lot. Next, I'm going to sign a presidential memorandum directing every member of my cabinet to marshal every power at their disposal to defeat inflation and rapidly bring down the cost of daily life, because your costs have gone through the roof in the last 4 years. Perhaps you didn't notice. Does anyone notice their costs are like double, triple, quadruple? You can't buy bacon. Apples have doubled in price. You want an apple, anybody? Pay twice what you did 2 years ago. We'll put more money in your pocket, and we'll bring back the American dream, and to reduce energy costs and liberate our economy. So we have more oil and gas than any country in the world, and we're going to use it. We're not going to do the wind thing. Wind. Big, ugly windmills, they ruin your neighborhood. They ruin you. If you have a house that's near a windmill, guess what? Your house is worth less than half. And did you see up in New England with the whales?
He's not going to talk about whales,
So they
is
had
he?
2 whales killed in about 14 years. Last year and the year before, total, they had 28. So if you're into whales, you don't want windmills either. And they're the most expensive form of energy that you can have by far. And they're all made in China, by the way, practically all of them. And they kill your birds and they ruin your beautiful landscapes. But other than that, I think they're quite good, right? Now, remember when we used to joke and kid, when we were kidding, but we don't kid anymore? They want to watch the debates on television. They want to watch your favorite president on television. But the wind isn't blowing, so we can't watch television that night, Gladys. Remember? Gladys, I'm sorry, the wind is just not blowing. We're not watching Trump tonight. But I'm immediately withdrawing from the unfair, one-sided Paris Climate Accord ripoff. The United States will not sabotage our own industries while China pollutes with impunity. You know, China, I mean, look, they use a lot of dirty energy, but they produce a lot of energy. And when that stuff goes up in the air, it doesn't stay there. It's not like you got a wall. We love walls, don't we? Not like you have a wall around and it doesn't. It floats into the United States of America after 3.5 to 5.5 days. It floats across the oceans, and it comes right over your neighborhood, and it falls into your neighborhood. So they all say, we have to fight for cleaner air, but the other dirty air is dropping all over us. So what the hell are they talking about? Unless everybody does it, It just doesn't work. You know, we had the
What the
cleanest
hell are
air
you
and the
talking
cleanest
about?
water that this country's ever had under the Trump administration. And we didn't do anything to stop jobs and stop production. Believe me, you're going to see a lot of companies come pouring back because tariffs. I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary. Then I was reprimanded by the fake news. They said, what about love, religion, and God? I said, I agree. Let's put God number one. Let's put religion number two. Love, I don't know. We got to put that number three, I guess, right? And then it's tariff. Because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back that left us. And I'll also sign an executive order to immediately end federal government censorship of the American people. In America, we believe in free speech. And we're bringing it back starting today to stop the weaponization. Oh, do I know about that? These creeps. Deranged Jack Smith. You ever hear of him? Deranged. He's a deranged prosecutor. He's sick. They suck him on me. He's now been reduced to getting on an airplane, going back to The Hague or wherever the hell he came from. We got to get rid of that guy. Hey, was he one of the many people that got a pardon today? Did they pardon Jack Smith? You know, did you know that Biden, while I was making my speech, pardoned his whole family? The brother, the whole deal was pardoned. Can you imagine that? While I was making my speech. Did everybody hear my speech? Did you like my speech?
All about you, Joe.
Thank you. I mean, the only thing wrong with it is I had a lot of tough things to say, and I have some great people that work for me. Sir, this is such a great speech. It's so unifying. Don't talk about Biden with his pardons of his family. We want a unified country. They said, don't talk about the J6 hostages that you're going to be releasing today. Sir, don't put that in your speech, please. I said, but I want to put it in my speech. They said, sir, it won't be unified like it is. It's so beautiful the way it is. And it is getting great reviews. You know, if I put things like that in, I'll get terrible reviews. One little paragraph that's a little bit wrong, the fake news goes crazy, right? So I said, all right, I won't put it in my speech, but you know what? I'm speaking in front of a hell of a lot of people at a place called Capital One Arena, and I'll talk about it there. So we're going to be going over the beautiful Oval Office, one of the great offices in history. Even if it wasn't beautiful, it's the Oval Office, but it is beautiful. And we love the Oval Office. It all starts with the wars start and end there. Everything starts and ends at the Oval Office. We love it. But we're going to go to the Oval Office. We're going to release our great hostages that didn't do, for the most part, they didn't do stuff wrong. You take a look at what went on, and look what happens in other parts of the country. In Portland, where they kill people, they destroy the city, nothing happens to them. In Seattle, where they took over a big chunk of the city, nothing happened. Minneapolis, where they burned down the city, nothing happened. Essentially nothing happened. All they want to do is go after the J6 hostages. A 76-year-old grandmother was arrested the other day because she was looking at the Capitol or something like that. No, we're not going to put up with that crap anymore. And to stop the weaponization of law enforcement,
I'm so tired
I've
of
been
the
investigated more than
normalization.
any human being in the world. I believe I have the all-time record. Every day a subpoena. Every
Fight the corruption.
single day would get subpoenas. I was more than any person. Alphonse Capone, remember I used to talk about it? You know, Alphonse Capone, Scarface, he was a pretty rough guy. He was investigated about 1/100th what Trump was investigated. My father's looking down at me, my mother, how the hell did this happen? You know what it is? They investigated their political opponent, the
Because you're a
opponent of
criminal?
Biden, and then ultimately Kamala. Has anyone ever heard of Kamala? We had to beat two opponents. You know, we had to beat Biden, then we beat him. Now he goes on top. The guy was like 39 points down. I think I could have beaten Trump. They should have left me and I would have beaten. No, his debate performance wasn't the best, right? That's what killed him. And then they had to change, and that's like you get into a fight. The great Dana White spoke last night. We love Dana White, right? UFC. That's like he puts in two fighters, one of them's getting creamed, getting really beaten, and they say, all right, take him out, let's put somebody else in to finish up the fight. That's what they did to us. They gave us somebody new, but we took care of both of them. So we beat actually two opponents. But to stop the weaponization of law enforcement and our government, I will also sign an order directing every federal agency to preserve all records pertaining to political persecutions under the last administration, of which there were many, and beginning the process of exposing any and all abuses of power, even though he's pardoned many of these people. Can you believe it? He's pardoned them. You know why he did it while I was speaking? Because that way I couldn't speak about it. I was speaking. I didn't know he did it. I finished my speech, and they said, sir, he pardoned his whole family. I said, ooh, can I go back out there and talk about it? Somehow that wouldn't be very elegant. Our First Lady would say, please don't do that. But we have plenty of time to talk about it, and we will. We're doing all of this on our very first day in office. You know, don't forget, we've been in this position, really, where we won the primaries in record time. We were the fastest win of a primary ever in political history, which is a very nice thing. It's nice to know. Well, the second election was rigged, so we knew we were doing well. And if it wasn't, you know what? If it wasn't, I would have never run. But the third one was just a monster. Boy, was that a big one, huh? That was a big one. On the second one, we got like 10 or 12 million votes more than the first one. How about that? We did great on the first one. We did much better on the second one. But bad did we do well on the third one. So we're gonna have some fun. It's very simple. We're gonna make our country great. We're gonna make our country great again. We're gonna make America great again. How good a name is MAGA, though, right? You know?
Oh, welcome
I was
back.
going to
Rio.
say keep America great, but unfortunately it wasn't great.
Yeah, shitty network problems, but we're back. And I came back at like just a very stressful moment, I'm guessing. Because like none of that sounded cohesive over the last like 2 minutes I've been back. So
Well, I'll bring you up to speed. January 6 rioters did nothing wrong. They went after a 76-year-old grandmother for looking at the Capitol or something. And he said he's going to sign an order to stop the weaponization of the Justice Department. And then he said something about tariffs, but it was like super vague.
yeah, he mentioned the weaponization thing during his inauguration speech too. And like I just didn't know how to like first of all, what does that even mean? And second of all, like, you know, how are you going to even try to do that? But at the same time, like the Justice Department is already
like,
so politicized, right?
We can talk about that more too, but like I don't know if you caught in his inauguration speech when he's like, oh, we're going to end the weaponization of the Justice Department, but also I'm going to appoint Kash Patel as head of the FBI, who wrote a literal book that had an enemies list in it. But
Jeez.
yes, we're gonna stop the weaponization of the Justice Department.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Can't say keep it great. It will be great
My
again.
brain's
But
melting.
Keep America Great. CAG. I don't think it's ever going to replace MAGA. Does anybody like CAG? I don't think so. It's never replacing MAGA. Nothing will ever replace MAGA. MAGA was the most successful political operation, political movement in the history of our country, maybe in the history of the world. Let's see what happens, because we're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. We got a long way to go.
Everything's just
but we're doing this in the very first day in office, and in just a few moments, I'm not only signing the release of the J6 hostages, I'm signing other things that you're going to love. Oh, you're going to be happy reading newspapers tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. So I just want to thank, I mean, look at this place. It's full to the rafters. You don't have any. Look at those people up there. You don't have any empty seats. And by the way, the Capitol,
I've seen a lot of empty seats.
One owners, they are so good. We got to root for their teams because they have been so great to MAGA, to us. And I just want to thank Ted and everybody. You guys have been fantastic. And the ice hockey team's doing great. Ovechkin's pretty good, right? They're doing great. So I want to thank them. Capital One Arena owners, they have been absolutely fantastic. And thank you once again to everyone. And I can only tell you, you're going to be very happy. You're going to watch a lot of good things happen. We got to stop some wars that are happening and going on. Some stupid things are happening. The war with Ukraine would have never happened, and it has. As you know, Israel has never been hit.
I need that money to invade Greenland.
None of you would be up here. None of you would even know anything about this tragedy that you're going through right now. But Iran was broke. Anybody that bought oil from Iran, they couldn't do any business with us. You're not going to do business with America. China passed. Everybody passed. They were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. And your sons would be alive, and they certainly wouldn't be incarcerated like they are. It's a shame, but we're getting a lot of people out in a short period of time. So I'm going to go right over to here, and I'm going to sign in front of you. Is that okay? Good.
He looks like that villain from fucking Despicable Me, the banker. Like fucking literally just hunched over, like pasty old dude. Well, not pasty because he's covered in orange crap, but you know what I mean.
Oh my god. What are those? Are those people with like pictures of January 6th rioters that are in jail?
Yeah, they're because he just called them hostages, right? You guys are going to let go of the January 6th hostages because that's what they are. You know, they're not people who incited a riot and attempted to kill Nancy Pelosi. Not at all.
Or police officers that were defending the Capitol, or hang Mike Pence.
Do you have that other one to sign?
How does this even happen? How does America get to the point where they're like, you know what seems like a good idea? Let's re-elect a guy that tried to overthrow the government.
So I saw a really funny joke on Reddit the other day that was like, so an American and a Russian are sitting in a bar talking. And the American says to the Russian, oh, you know, you Russians are poor, like, you poor Russians, your countries are so full of propaganda. And then the Russian's like, yeah, but at least we know it's propaganda, right? Unlike you Americans. And the American guy's like, we don't have propaganda. And the Russian guy's like, yeah, see what I mean? Jesus, like he's starting a fucking like children's autograph board.
The second item, President Trump, is a regulatory freeze, as you announced in your speech, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control of this, the government and this administration.
Jesus. They really signed on for the whole like Project 2025 Rise of Fascism thing, huh?
Holy fascism, Batman! Okay, so I'm going to admit, I don't watch very many presidential inaugurations, but like, this can't be like normal, right?
No, like this seems like it's way outside of
and we understand the objectives of government going forward.
Wow.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, Biden signed a lot of these things.
Sir, the next item, as you announced in your speech, is a requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work immediately. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a directive to every department and agency in the federal government to address the cost of living crisis that has cost Americans so dearly.
Also, I feel like this is the type of thing you do in like a hockey stadium. Like, this feels kind of important, you know?
Everything is a spectacle.
Yeah, literally.
Thank you, sir. The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty. Yes, sir.
Hey, at least we know JD Vance is safe. I was starting to think that Musk had him like chained up in a dungeon somewhere.
I mean, for all we know, he's
We're
just
going to
been let
save
out.
over $1 trillion by withdrawing from that treaty. And the next item, sir, is a letter that will be transmitted to the United Nations explaining that we are withdrawing from the Paris Climate Treaty.
I feel like if he has to like sign these, but maybe
Thank you,
he should
sir.
be,
This next
able
item
to
is a
read.
directive to the
I'm not
federal
convinced he
government
can read.
ordering the restoration of freedom of speech and preventing government censorship of free speech going forward.
Kind of looks like this is the first he's hearing of each one, doesn't it?
Right?
Like he doesn't
And
appear to
lastly,
really
sir,
know
before
like
we go
what's
back to
in
the Oval
these,
Office to
other
sign a
than
large number of other items, is a directive to the federal government ending the weaponization of government against the political adversaries of the previous administration, as we've seen.
Easy.
which isn't needed because that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, but that's the spectacle, right? Like, this is some literal 1984 Ministry of Truth type shit. Yeah, I'm not
Thank you
convinced
very
he's
much,
actually,
sir.
like, these are actually, like,
Appreciate
what
it.
they say, right? Like,
Pretty fun job.
Okay, we don't need to watch that.
yeah. Okay, let's pull up the,
Jesus.
I'm gonna pull up some news articles and we can kind of rant about this a bit.
I've been refreshing the CNN like live executive actions, like what's actually been signed. So he hasn't actually signed any January 6th rioter pardons yet.
Let's see. Trump executive order will attempt to end birthright citizenship. Fun.
Yeah. Well, see, that's actually a really interesting one because it's literally in the US Constitution. And
Yeah.
people are talking about how, like, well, since when can you just make the US Constitution go away with an executive order?
Yeah.
And I know there's at least one, I can't remember if it's senator or congressman,
Yeah.
but he has birthright citizenship and has like a full lawsuit ready to go. For Saturday's episode, I'll make sure that I pull up the name. But I'm going to be watching that closely just from a pure like legal perspective, because generally speaking in the US, you need to have an amendment made to the Constitution.
Yeah.
To either add or take away, right?
Yeah. And like, even I just Googled this because I was curious. I don't actually know the US Constitution amendment process. You need 2/3 of both the House and the Senate, which, like, I'm pretty sure the Republicans have that in the House, but I'm pretty sure they don't have that in the Senate.
No,
right?
it's they have, I think I have to check the numbers because they've been moving since the election, but I think they only have 4 or 5 seats over the Democrats in the Senate. Like, it's really close.
In the House of Representatives, it's 220. Let's check the Senate of the Philippines. As interested as I am for that, I'm not that interested at the moment. Republicans have 52. One is vacant, and there are 2 independents. The rest are all Democrats. So, yeah, there's no way in hell that's getting through.
No. So I would be interested to see what happens, and who knows, right? Like, that's something that's going to eventually go up to the Supreme Court, and that's a whole other conversation. But
yeah, and
the
kind of
Supreme
like
Court's been weird.
Well, it's a majority like Republican Supreme Court, but the other thing too is, like, kind of like what we talked about earlier, everything's a spectacle. I feel like this is just that, right? Like, it's, and you and I had a conversation about this a few weeks ago, where it's like, we're going to do all the stupid shit to distract people from the other stuff I actually want to do, because that's how you just bury the news, right? Just put out so much crap so that, like, for the few things that really do matter, everyone's paying attention to, like, oh, weaponization of the justice system, oh, like, this phony baloney cost of living crisis nonsense. Like, yeah, I feel like that's, I want to say he's an idiot, but we also know since 2016 he's probably learned a lot. So, like, we're probably looking at someone who has, like, learned how to play the game and realized, oh, if I just do all this stupid crap, this is what works, right? And then
You know what,
Republicans
though?
probably also realize, just put stuff in front of them, they'll sign it. So
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Like, Trump might be a buffoon. Sorry to all the buffoons out there. But the people around him aren't.
Yeah.
Like, they are radical, douchey, crazy people.
Yeah.
But they're not stupid, right? Like, we know that Trump doesn't read. I made a joke earlier about how I'm not sure that he can read.
Yeah.
But it's well known that in his first term, all morning security briefings weren't allowed to be more than a page and a half, because he just simply wouldn't read them. So I'm not convinced that he's reading these executive orders in their entirety either. Part of them, I feel like, could be a distraction, right? Like the weaponization of the Justice Department. Like, that's not a thing right now, but it will be interesting to see if anybody tries to use those executive orders when Trump and Patel and Bondi start coming after political opponents of Trump, because we know that's going to happen. That's why Trump has appointed Patel, who, like I said, had a literal hit list of people in his book of people that served either in the last Trump administration. There was some never Trumpers on that list. There were also, people like Joe Biden. It's absolutely insane. Meanwhile, everybody's sort of looking over here at these executive orders. Well, Musk is moving into the White House. He got an email, an official White House email 3 hours ago. And not only is he getting White House office space, he's getting West Wing White House office space.
Jesus. So, like, man's, like, just right next door to the president.
This is like literally the richest man on the earth.
Yeah.
Is going to have uncontrolled access to the president of the United States.
Yep. And this is how democracy crumbles, right? But, like,
and sorry to cut you off, but one other thing. Remember how he was supposed to run the Department of Government Efficiency?
Yep.
With that other guy? Yeah, so that guy's been run out, and now it's just Musk. So it's going to be Musk on his own making recommendations to Trump about what to cut and what to change within the government to make it more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, this is keep in mind this is the same guy who will like announce features for his new cars and like his whatever, like on Twitter, right? So like the first time you usually hear about something, or the engineers will usually hear about something, is on Twitter. So yeah, I'm not surprised, but also this is just absolutely insane. But this is the type of person that like Trump is looking for, right? Basically, just a cheap, well, in this case, a very expensive yes man, but like a yes man nonetheless. And the other thing too, I kind of wanted to mention, like we all know that Trump's like a habitual liar. He does it like all the time. I'm sure between his inauguration speech and the one we just kind of sat through.
Well, I lost count. I lost count of how many lies there were.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many. And even one of them was like, oh yeah, I totally don't know what Project 2025 is. I never heard of it, da 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 da. And yet he just signed a whole bunch of executive orders that align exactly with Project 2025. So we're dealing with this like storm of shit that no one's talking, like everyone's going to talk about, like, oh, he's doing this, he's pardoning J6ers, da, 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 not realizing that right under our noses is we're seeing the shift towards like, yep, just all loyal appointees. Like this is how you shrink the coalition of people you need to stay in power, and that's how he's going to stay in power, right? Like I wouldn't, and this is speculation. We have 4 years. I mean, who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But it's entirely possible that within 4 years he just decides, no, I'm not gonna, like, there are no elections. I want to be president again, just cause, right? And that should be a terrifying thought for everybody. Like, that's basically what Vladimir Putin did. He just amended the Constitution, quote unquote, so that all the powers of the president went over to the powers of all the powers of the prime minister went to the power of president, and whatever. He just shuffles it back and forth.
Well, and it's super interesting you say that because, like, and I'm not like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I almost wonder if the executive order around birthright is to test the courts on amending the Constitution without actually going through Congress. Because if he gets away with the birthright stuff, what's to stop? Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, as we saw in the inauguration earlier, like, he's basically, not only does he have billionaires in his cabinet at this point, Bezos, Altman, who, if you don't know, is the OpenAI CEO, the CEO of TikTok, Musk, the CEO of Google, and of course Mark Zuckerberg were all like right behind him on the stage at the inauguration today.
Yep.
For the whole world to see. So that's, like, I guess, a conversation for later. For now, I think we'll cut this one off and just say that we're both kind of disgusted with the executive orders. Yeah. There wasn't too much in that, I think, that was either unexpected at this point in time. I will be watching closely tonight to see what happens with the January 6 rioters and what they do with tariffs. As a Canadian, that's kind of probably the biggest one for us. Are they going to issue a between 10 and 25% tariff on Canada, or are they going to go with the trade evaluation bullshit stuff?
Which, I mean, like, we already renegotiated NAFTA into a new one, which like, NAFTA was fine. For the record, NAFTA was fine. Like, I was pretty happy with NAFTA, and I feel like things got more expensive when we scrapped NAFTA, And this is also just a side note and something we can talk about later. Like, I feel like it's surprising that America is shifting from, like, yeah, free market economics, this is capitalism, baby, to extreme government intervention in free markets, right? And like, I'm not the most like supportive of the free market. I'm very like, no, there should probably be like a safety net somewhere, right? But even I'm like, no, that was a pretty stupid decision, because like markets can be efficient when you let them do their thing, but you can't do them, like, you can't just change it and expect 4 years to manifest in what you need it to be, right? So it's insane, and basically this entire administration is going to be absolutely insane. So yeah, fun, very exciting.
And I can't wait to have many, many conversations about it with you. Okay, guys, so Rio and I will be back probably with another inauguration video at some point this week. And then, of course, our premiere episode will be launched on Monday. So we'll talk to you later.
See you, everyone.